Well, we have another real deal report from Dean JFK Jr. You're a traitor to Biden in 1995 plot to kidnap him, where Biden made death threats. My impression has been that John was taken out because he was thinking of running for the Senate, where Hillary wanted to use that as a stepping stone in her efforts to become president of the United States. Dean, what's your thoughts?
Well, Jim, this is breaking news as usual. What you just said, Jim, is very, very bold and highlights exactly what Roger Stone said in his book, Clinton's War on Women, which really brought that angle to the alleged death of JFK Jr. to light, of his plane getting rigged in an attempt of an assassination on him because he was planning to run for the New York Senate seat that was open in the year 2000. Well, as we know, that wicked witch from Arkansas, Hillary Clinton, she wanted that seat. And when Hillary Clinton wants something, she's going to get it, even if she has to make it look like you killed yourself. And so who's close to Clinton? Who's the other cabal member? Joe Biden. And I was just taken back when I was reading through these files, which is still a developing story. But Joe Biden was called a traitor by JFK Jr. for a reason that we're still looking into. But the FBI did verify that Joe Biden did make very credible death threats against JFK Jr. And what I learned and what people will learn from that short article is that there were many dangerous attempts on JFK Jr.'s life since the mid-'80s in a 1995 kidnapping plots from gentlemen from South America's nationals. So they could be mercenaries just like MS-13 are. So just very unusual things that we never knew.
What would you do if they brought the power grid down? And by they, I mean if the government purposefully brought the power grid down. And I'm not asking that question for fun. I'm asking that question because the World Economic Forum is predicting that a cyber pandemic, you can look this up, they've been running exercises about it this year. You're probably saying, what is a cyber pandemic? Doesn't make any sense. Like, what are we even talking about? Well, first and foremost, the reason I'm even paying attention to the World Economic Forum and their exercises is because they notoriously, in 2019, ran an exercise for a coronavirus pandemic that oddly all became true. I mean, without one slight difference, they said that the coronavirus was going to escape from a wet market in South America. Of course, when the coronavirus swept the world in 2020, they said that it escaped from a wet market in China. They simulated that coronavirus pandemic. It was the World Economic Forum in collaboration with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, in collaboration with Johns Hopkins University. And the website is still up, and they say, the coronavirus pandemic is inevitable. And then boom, it happened the very next year. The point is that they made the prediction, they called it inevitable, and then it happened immediately. And lo and behold, they are predicting that a coronavirus pandemic, a cyber pandemic, is going to happen, and that it is once again inevitable.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Beware of Darkness. Usually we're doing a after party of sorts, but there's really no party right now. There's just time of action, time of steadfast, time of discernment, time of war.
I get nothing. I got nothing to be scared of. No, sir-ree. Except for a cyber plandemic. So they say. Welcome, everybody, to the original series here at Real Deal Media, World at War. I am your late night host here, Dean Ryan, who is quite late. It is, yes, Dean Ryan, the one and only. It is raining. It is, I guess I can blame it on the rain in this case, because we are experiencing some incredibly insidious type of weather where the fog vid is coming back, where we are broadcasting right here. And to say it's eerie is really doing a disservice, but it's eerie. And I think we're going to figure out a reason why later in the show. Spider webby kind of weird stuff falling from the sky. Yeah, so we're going to get into that. But anyways, tonight's show is called Cyber Plandemic. As you heard the very knowledgeable Candace Owens share with us in the cold opening there. Yes, right after our classic, memorable 2020 moment. But yes, the cyber plandemic is upon us. It's being predicted. It's being rumored. It's it's coming fast. I mean, you already had Peru that had lights out for quite some time, and Cuba. Well, why can't it happen here? You think about that. So yeah, we're going to be talking about that, as that's going to be our featured story here tonight at World at War. Also, and there's just so much, and I'm only one person. As much as I've tried to clone myself, it just doesn't work. Well, also, we're going to talk about some of the most recently revealed documents from the JFK saga. Yes, and what was the role of the Pentagon of that assassination? But more importantly, what was their role in creating a huge disease that affects pretty much a lot of people we know, stemming from Plum Island? We'll be talking about that. Also, in addition to that, in Real Deal Politics, you might have heard all the buzz about Trump considering the U.S. entry into the British Commonwealth. You might have heard about that buzz, which was kind of a rumor started by the British tabloids that are just infamous of creating, inventing stories of their own right. So we'll be talking about what exactly does that mean. And it could be one of those planted stories that Donald Trump puts out there in his own way to distract, to use that term. So we'll be talking about that. Plus a major update with the Judge Demics now. The Judge Demics are now playing ball, and there is a huge focus on the United States judges around the country, from local to the judicial over there in the national, in the U.S. federal level. Just how important are they? Are they activists, or are they just caring friends of humanity? And I think the latter is definitely not true. So we'll be getting into that, and we'll kind of get an update about where in the world is and what in the world is Pam Bondi up to. We should be following the lead of her predecessor from ages ago, Mr. Elton Barr. Will peer into that, and what does she have to say about Epstein files and some other bugaboos that she's now having to deal with over there in the Democrat swamp rat alleyways. So we'll get into that. And just another beautiful tone, like one of those wind chimes. We'll be talking about the foreclosure, I guess we could say, of the Department of Education. Yes, sad to see it go, said nobody, but we'll talk about that. And yes, the cow fertilizer woman who is 10 feet under, because 6 wasn't good enough. Hillary Clinton is back. I get so emotional sometimes, and excited too. But yeah, she's back, and she's calling for more thought police. Hasn't she learned? She's learned nothing. Well, I guess she can't. She's dead. Plus, we're going to be talking and getting into Doge. Everybody that is now, driving a Tesla is now worried. Are they going to be carjacked? Are they going to be vandalized? So is there going to be due process to go after the people doing it? Or is it just one person who's doing it in a small group? Yes, there is where the mystery lies. So we'll get into our Doe segment and some huge real deal international you don't want to miss. Crisis in Turkey is underway. We'll talk about that and who's behind it. And yes, you're right, CIA, I'm sure, and Mossad. See, I can't say that now. I can't. Can I say Mossad? So we'll talk about that. Plus, Ukraine, Zelensky. Looks like they're violating their peace treaty already. I mean, surprise, surprise. They had to, or else, people are going to be just going to the gulags. So we'll see what that's all about. Plus, a response over there in Greenland. And also, eggs are hard to come by. Now we're having to import our eggs. This is getting insane. I mean, do we really eat that many eggs? But maybe we do. So we'll see who we're buying it from. Joe Rogan is now speaking too. He's blasting Canada, and you'll find out why. And he's praising Russia, which is really not that hard to do these days. Plus a major another featured story. If we can even get to this, we have so many. We have another featured story in the Real Deal International. Now China is ready to take Taiwan. They're really serious this time, and they think they're going to be doing it earlier than 2027. That's coming up, and I'm going to show you the roadmaps to how they're going to do it. We're going to strategize in a geopolitical fashion exactly what that's going to look like and what that's going to mean to us. But for some people, they're saying, yes, finally, another war we can play in. So we're going to have that. Also, finally, it's a lot. Finally, we have a space in place. Space is the place over there in the UK. Something weird's happening in the SpaceX rocket. A lot of people are seeing some things. But also, we have some Real Deal showbiz. We have some old old segments, Real Deal religious. And also, I'm going to show you and share with you 10 easy steps to surviving the power grid failure from the cyber plandemic, I guess we can call it now. That will be provided by Natural News. Okay, we are broadcasting live over there on the Real Dean Ryan over there on Facebook, as well as YouTube, Dean Ryan TV over there at the Graveyard, and the soon-to-be Graveyard, Rumble, who is not even hiding it anymore. They're just shadow banning us as well. Which, if I can't get past this shadow ban, everybody, I mean, we're not looking at a long future here for much longer for Real Deal Media. So I'm trying extra hard here. It's just incredible that what happens to the truly independent shows and networks out there within the independent media, they kind of, unless they're playing ball and become the cookie cutters, they're not really playing ball. So that's just a little forewarning. Okay, let's get started with some headlines from around the world and in your neck of the woods, shall we? Real Deal headlines. Okay, let's get to it now because there's so much to get to. And we kind of, this first story we kind of shared with you over the weekend. If you missed it, we had a Sunday brunch that was one of the most chaotic Sunday brunches I've had since the bottomless mimosa deal over there at the El Torito Sunday brunching restaurant. But this case, speaking of chaos, sticking with the theme, well, now there's now chaos and panic in D.C. Oh, yeah, that's right. Now Trump has revoked the security clearances for Joe Biden and other huge names. Who could the huge names be? I mean, it should really say revoke the security clearances of Joe Biden and all the other dead people. But that's not me. I'm not the editor of that paper. So, but here's what I'm talking about now. As this is a long time coming, because you have to remember this was done to Bobby during the campaign, his campaign. He was not only revoked any security clearance, but security detail. He wasn't allowed Secret Service when the irony is Robert Kennedy Sr. was the one who created the Secret Service department that we know of today. Well, now Donald Trump has, yes, revoked even more security clearances. At this time, it's particularly a big deal throughout the D.C. Beltway. That's absolutely correct. Well, it all started on a dreary night over there on Friday and reported on a memo that was shared to the White House website. That's right, on Saturday, with report of mentioning former President Joe Biden. Oh, it's still painful to say that. Former Vice President Kamala Harris, or the town and village drunk, as we know her, and Hillary Clinton are just some of the huge names that we have to look forward to. Well, here's some of what Trump's memo said. Quote, I have determined that it is no longer in the national interest of following individuals for the following individuals to access classified information. Besides Biden, Harris, and Clinton, the list includes former Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, while working over there on the Joe Biden campaign. Also, Jake Sullivan, who served as the National Security Advisor under Biden. Lisa Monaco, who served as the Deputy Attorney General under Biden. Attorney General Mark Zaid. Norman Eisen, Lolita James, who has, well, we all know her work from going after Trump big time. Mr. Alvin Bragg, the DA over there in Manhattan, New York. Andrew Weissman, big part of the Russian collusion ordeal. Who remembers that? And my favorite, the daughter of the Penguin himself, Liz Cheney, who was one of the leaders of the Jan 6 plot to take everybody down, and you know the story, as well as former Republican Representative Adam Kinzinger, and affairs advisor Fiona Hill. And last but certainly least, Alexander Vindman, who was involved in the first impeachment against Donald Trump during the first term, if you recall. So the memo also doesn't just address the former presidents and his family members who all got their security detail rescinded, but it also mentions any other members of the Joseph R. Biden family and friends in place of employment. So there you have it. Just another one bites the dust for the previous administration. A real shame. Well, not really, but anyways, moving on here. Well, now there's newly released JFK files, and we've all seen it. I've shared one of them on my public page over there at Facebook, and I was lambasted for it, and I'll probably get into that later in the show. But this one is quite interesting now, as the newly released JFK documents reveal Pentagon's role in creating Lyme disease and COVID in the same lab. That's absolutely correct. Before we even go further, if you go all the way back to Operation Paperclip, after the World War II, and I would say even during, both scientists of this country, Germany and Korea, were all colluding together in the same laboratories, even to modern day. And after the war, they divvied up all the most brilliant scientists over there in Germany, and a lot of them came here. And when they did, they stationed themselves in their laboratories over there in Plum Island on the East Coast. And that was the beginning of Lyme disease as we know it. Isn't that something? But let me tell you a bit more about this now. Well, in a recently bombshell revelation, newly declassified JFK files have exposed a lot of people, one of them even being George H.W. Bush, who we kind of figured out where he was going and what he was involved in at the time, because he says he can't remember. So we might even have to dig him up just to bury him again. Well, now in this case, this one goes after the Pentagon's decades-long bioweapons program, including the creation of the tick-borne virus, the Lyme disease, which is terrible. I know a handful of people have had it and still do. And the development of the COVID in 1984 pathogen as we know it today in the same military lab. Now, the documents confirm that researchers like Chris Newby and the author of Bitten have long suspected that the United States government has been weaponizing diseases to destabilize nations and other control populations, or, well, to control populations, including us. And my sidekick agrees with me too. Isn't that correct, Arnie? Okay, he hasn't learned his lesson. Moving on, or continuing rather. Well, now, in addition to that, the U.S. government has, yes, been weaponizing diseases to destabilize nations, and I would say including our own here, in any kind of movements to prevent revolutions and control populations around the world. Now, this chilling discovery raises urgent questions about the true origins of modern day pandemics and the unchecked power of the shadowy government agencies that we always were told we had to worship. Well, key revelations, just to note, the Pentagon created Lyme disease in the 1960s as part of a bioweapons program aimed at sabotaging Cuba's agriculture. And this is another thing we've been learning from the JFK files, is the hell-bent insistence to go into Cuba to finish the job, and the anger and resentment that was lingering throughout the CIA, especially the criminal elements of it, or the Fruit Corps agency, as they were called back then, towards Kennedy, all has to do with Cuba. Cuba. And it's a real shame that Castro is not here to see all these revelations coming about. And it's a real shame that he had a illegitimate son named Justin Trudeau, but that's another story. Also, continuing here is the same lab, same playbook now, is the Rocky Mountain Laboratories over there in Montana, where Lyme disease was engineered, brought to places like Plum Island, also received a DARPA funding to develop the COVID-19 pathogen. So this is kind of what we see. These pathogens, and at the very least, the blueprints for them, for all these big pandemics, whether even throughout the Obama decade, you saw the bird flu, you saw the Ebola virus, and all these different ailments. They create it here, but then they manufacture it and distribute it in foreign countries, which creates a plausible deniability to it. In this case, the Wuhan laboratories over there in China. Well, now, masking bioweapons, they're now saying, as natural outbreaks is kind of the name of the game for the dark elements, criminal elements of the United States military. The U.S. military has also had a long, disgusting history of disguising bioweapons as naturally occurring disease, a tactic now linked to COVID-19. Absolutely. And finally, the CIA involvement has been implicated in funding and covering up these programs for quite some time, including the Wuhan Institute of Virology work on the Corona-palooza as we know it. So, this is all coming out, and, this goes beyond, I think that the files go well beyond the assassination, and they go into the early infancy and creation of the deep state as we know it today that has been ruling us since November 22nd, 1963, if you really put it into perspective. Moving on here. Well, now let's go to our featured story. Well, as you heard Candace Owens in the beginning of the cold opening, talking about the World Economic Forum now making another Karnak prediction of a pandemic, but this time in the form of cyber attacks. Well, it's a serious thing to take, because these are the people who have incredibly made these predictions about what we're going through today, with Event 201, with even the UN announcing what their goals are to get to 2030. Actually, it used to be 2021 when it was the 21 goals of the United Nations, or Agenda 21. I always get those mixed up with the 21 goals of the Illuminati. They just really mix and mash well. So in this case now, we're going to now look into what we're talking about here, because we've been preparing and talking about preparing for a power grid takedown for quite some time. People call it the 3 days of darkness. People call it the 10 days of darkness. And regardless, it has really got people to start preparing for what may come. People are buying emergency foods and all different sorts of just preparation until they eat it after a week. But, like some people I know. But in this case, this one is quite urgent now, as there's now a call to be prepared for the next cyber attack. And they're probably going to blame Russia, just to let you know. Well, now officials warn against potentially costly ransomware attacks that may be coming to the United States. Just may be coming. And what I'm talking about is now the FBI and the U.S. Cybersecurity infrastructure and all the agencies connected to it are warning against dangerous ransomware schemes. Now, in an advisory posted earlier just in the week here, government officials warned that a ransomware as a service software called Medusa, which has launched ransomware attacks since 2021, could be at play. Well, because it's recently affected hundreds of people. Medusa is using phishing campaigns as one of the main methods to steal victims' credentials, according to the cybersecurity agency. Now, they're saying to protect against the ransomware, officials recommend patching operating systems, software, firmware, in addition to using multi-factor authentication kind of procedures. Now, it's interesting how this seems to be coming out at the same time that the World Economic Forum is now pushing this, because they couldn't get disease X to really stick, could they? So they have to go to the next level in the desperation, as it is the deep state way. Well, what am I talking about? Well, here's just something I found that goes all the way back to 2020. Have a look at this, and you tell me here. You can't make this up. This is August 18th, 2020. And you have the same type of people predicting and forecasting the same kind of things that they're now talking about, this ransomware. Have a look at this. Cyber pandemic survival. Okay. Well, there it is. Hopefully you can see that. I have bad weather on my end, so I do apologize. Bear with me here. Cyber Plandemic Survival Guide. 3 things for the future consideration. So they've been predictive programming us with this for quite some time, haven't they? Look at that. Well, what are we talking about here? We're living in certain times, and just kind of bring time travel all the way back to 2020. And this was probably the last thing any of us were thinking about, was a cyber attack and what have you. But this is what it's all about now, because these people are going for broke. So this is what the survival guide, 3 things for future consideration. And just 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, if you recall, it was survival guides in case of a nuclear fallout. So now it's this again. So they're digging up the old blueprints just in time to hit their 2030 mark. So cybercrime has a low barrier to entry, and some security leaders have predicted. Now here, look at this right here. August 18th, 2020. Some cybersecurity leaders have predicted a cyber pandemic. Isn't that the name of tonight's episode? I didn't even know this was here. It's on the horizon. Notably, this idea preceded the COVID-19 84. So while the pandemic may not be the cause, it could be exacerbate a cyber pandemic's inevitability. The root question then is how consumers and business can prepare to survive fear. So, yeah, the proof is in the history, not just in the pudding, of what they're planning on doing. Now, what is this going to look like? What is this going to look like? Well, if you look at Peru, they were blacked out. We don't even know what happened. It's very difficult to find out any kind of information at all that happens in South America. But that one was big, the whole country. So here's what I see happening from my point of view is the closer our relation in the United States gets with Russia, the closer we're going to be having a cyber threat and power grid takedown, because that's it. Hence why in our later segment, when we get to Ukraine, you're going to understand why Zelensky and the people behind him did it. But if the U.S. and Russia form together with an alliance, that is the end of the modern day Europe as we know it. It's the end of NATO. It's the end of the UN as we know it. But really, here's the more important one. It's a big blow to the Bolshevik Zionists who took over Russia and tried to take it over again, but Putin kicked them out, kicked out all the corporations of that particular group, and he's no friend of theirs. And if they don't get Russia into World War III, their fate is sealed, and our fate is just beginning. So that's what we're going to see in the near future. And, my predictions, I hate to be right about these things, but sometimes, and majority of the time, that's usually the case. So there you have it on that one. Okay, we're going to now move over here to this here. I want to share this with you because it's raining here, and a lot of people have noticed the fog vid, and a lot of people are now understanding or getting a little curious about what are chemtrails, what is geoengineering, why is it 70 degrees Fahrenheit, and by the next day it's a blizzard. How is this happening? Meanwhile, they can't even answer to all these fires that come out of nowhere. Well, this is a little report from Mike Adams, who recently had a person who's definitely familiar with the matter. Check this out, and we'll discuss after Mike Adams.
Dr. Jane Ruby just sent us a sample of something that fell on a plastic covering of her porch crops, right? Her tomato plants or whatever in Florida. She sent us a sample for lab analysis. That's in analysis right now. Next week, we'll have some results. But clearly something's falling out of the sky that shouldn't be there. I mean, there's just thick white coating, like grayish, whitish coating on the plastic that shouldn't be there.
I'm glad you just said that, because actually I was collecting pollen samples. And recently, I cover so many topics, by the way, Mike, on my Substack. There were these like 20-foot, 30-foot long spider webs, so, silks falling from the sky, these strands. And it was so bizarre that I also collected samples. And then I have 3 people looking under microscopes to try to figure out what is this? What is this material? It's not spider silk, clearly. And then, as there was that symposium or that conference talking about how this also happened in Europe. So all of these spider webs were falling from the sky. And what they're finding is that they appear to be some sort of delivery mechanisms, and for chemicals or, whatever they might want to put into these fibers. And so I've been covering so many things regarding geoengineering, stuff falling from the sky. You have insect drops. You've got, genetically modified mosquitoes they're releasing. I mean, it's everything possible is being unleashed.
Absolutely correct. Everything possible is being unleashed. And I've noticed some of the things she was talking about, I totally have noticed. These like stringy spider web kind of residue that's coming down from the fog. It's definitely, it's got to be some of what they're calling smart dust. Definitely DARPA's involved, just like DARPA was involved with Lyme disease. And there's something that should be audited, don't you think? DARPA, some of these huge, shadowy just institutions that are tied to the military. I think so. Anyways, that's going to bring us to Real Deal Politics, just the way you like it. Okay, I'm back, everybody. I'm back. It's the spider webs that get in you. Anyways, moving on here. Well, let's get into the Real Deal Politics. Well, if you don't know, this was quite fascinating over the weekend. I just found out about this just the other day. Well, now in the preparation for the Donald Trump visit to the UK, there's been a lot of goodwill, kind of jubilous kind of vibe and theme out there. Well, in this case, this one's a little far, as now, and this is Trump's now considering the United States entry into a British Commonwealth. Yeah, that's right. Donald Trump has recently commented on social media about the possibility of the United States joining the British Commonwealth in an associate capacity following a report of a secret offer from, yes, the sausage king of London himself, Prince Charles. Yes, Prince Charles over there. Well, his suggestion has sparked a significant debate all over the place, and you'll see here in a minute. And it's prompted outrage in some, with opinions ranging from, yes, outrage, rejection to cautious consideration. Well, the idea has been interpreted by some as a potential compromise of the American sovereignty, while others see it as an opportunity to enhance international relations. Now, it's worth noting there's no official confirmation about any of this so far from the White House or Buckingham Palace, but this has created a stir around the globe, internationally, all over the place. In fact, here's just a little sample of what I'm talking about, the stir that's bringing us into the Commonwealth.
The American President Donald Trump has said that he's in fact open to the idea of making America part of the British Commonwealth of Nations. And this comes after Britain's King Charles III is reportedly mulling to extend an offer that would make Washington an associate member of this 56-nation bloc. In a post on his Truth Social account, the American President Donald Trump said that the offer sounds really good to him, while adding that he loves King Charles. According to reports, King Charles's offer will be extended to the US president during his planned state visit to the United Kingdom. The reports further suggest that the associate membership could of course be followed by a full membership. It also has added that the move would symbolize Britain's very close relationship with the United States. If the membership is offered and accepted by Washington, then the United States envoy to the United Kingdom will no longer be an ambassador, as Commonwealth nations only appoint high commissioners to represent their respective countries. Now, the Commonwealth of Nations includes 56 member nations. A majority of these nations have either been a former British colony or have been a dominion of the British Empire. For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Thank you. I'll make sure I won't. Those people stole World at War from me. Anyways, yeah, so there you go. There's all the buzz about it. I mean, you throw just a little bit of peanuts to the peanut gallery and people just eat it up, and it changes the entire subject matter of the day, no matter what the case is. And Trump is definitely a master of that. Now, let's continue now as we now go into the Judge-demic. That's right. Judges are preventing our sovereignty from coming back. Yes, they are. They're like the bell bottoms that just won't go to the thrift shop and just go away. No, they stay in your drawer to wreak havoc. That's right. Well, now the question is being begged. Alien enemies? Alien enemies? Well, activist judges, that's what we can call them, are now revealing their true colors. Yes, they are. By siding with foreign gangs and cartels. Yes, judges are revealing their true colors, and I heard it was hot pink, to be exact. Well, the pretty young waitress eyed me nervously. It took a second or three for her to speak, and finally realized she doesn't know any form of English in a very predominantly English area. Speaking, that is. And that's just some of the sentiment that's coming about here. But yes, now it's worth noting here that it's been discovered that police and local volunteers, including a group called Searching Warriors of Jalisco over there, moved in and began discovering traces of unimaginable violence over there at the border. We've been documenting that for quite some time. That's right. Cremation ovens, burned human remains, bone shards, discarded personal items, and hundreds of shoes. More shoes than Imelda Marcos, they're saying. Over 1,500 personal items have been documented, suggesting that hundreds, if not thousands, maybe even more than just thousands, people met their end in a little slice of hell over there in the Mexican sun, right about that border. That's right. Authorities have not identified any of these people or even given them a number. They believe that the camp was not just a killing place, but it was also a training ground where initiates to the new generation cartel were made to torture and kill to prove their worth. And these are some of the examples of the people that are being sent away and told to get out and get out now. Well, the scale of the evil taking place over there in Mexico is quite staggering, and the stench is pretty bad too, if I might add. Ensenada, i.e. It is without doubt evil in true metaphysical sense. Well, the Trump administration has sought quite rightly to recognize this moral fact. many scholars are saying, and to use it to fight the groups perpetuating such evil in the United States itself and others like them, all the more effectively since they are killing tens of thousands of Americans, and that's just with fentanyl. That's just with fentanyl, to say the least here. Now, the Alien Enemies Act has been used sparingly over the last 200 years. Absolutely. Because, and it has to be because of the judges, which we'll get to here, but it has tremendous application. They're saying during the First and Second World War, it was used to round up intern suspected foreign sympathizers, including the Japanese citizens themselves and Japanese Americans, sadly, after the bombing of Pearl Harbor. Now, empowered by the Alien Enemies Act, Trump can now arrest, deport people without the niceties of due process. And it sounds great, but it could also, that's kind of scary too. That's, it's like, juggling knives, isn't it? Well, because they're alien enemies, they're saying, and they can be cuffed, chucked on a plane and flown somewhere else far, far away and left there. Or places like El Salvador, for example. Well, this is exactly what happened within hours of Trump invoking the Alien Enemies Act. And we got to remember that, the Alien Enemies Act just last weekend. 2 planes left the United States carrying hundreds and hundreds of Venezuelans' finest lifted gang cartels sent back to Venezuela. Now, one plane was bound for El Salvador to deposit its cargo of the gangs themselves over there for President Bukalele's latrine. I mean, he built a huge prison for this. So this is a huge international ordeal. Now, as soon as this news broke, you might recall, as soon as this broke, Obama-appointed Judge James Boasberg issued an emergency injunction to stop the deportations immediately, even ordered the planes to turn around and come back. Well, thankfully, they didn't, many have said. The White House is now unrepented and they haven't even done a move to say and acknowledge that that's really, truly the law. Well, now they stuck to the line that it was not defying Judge Boasberg's order in any case. What right does a district judge have to determine the foreign policy of the United States of America? And what a great question that is. What is some ponytail-wearing, leftover hippie from Haight-Ashbury judge who's all hopped up on adrenochrome? What jurisdiction does he have? Because we just found out what happens at that torture camp. Now, apparently he doesn't believe these things are real because, he's a metropolitan kind of chick over there. That's the kind of just modern day warfare we're having here. Now, the administration's well-documented problems with district judges, leakers have now released confidential information over there at the New York Times. Yes, there's a huge leak. I don't know all the information on it, about it, other than J.D. Vance, Megaseth, and little Marco Rubio. Their plans for some sort of war or reprisal of one over there in Gaza was somehow leaked. I don't know too much about that. It's really developing in a way. Well, now these are leaking too. So there is a onslaught attack now. So in closing here, now when and if and when this case reaches the Supreme Court, which it will, many have said, people said that they don't think the Trump administration will have too much trouble convincing the entire Supreme Court bench about the Powers Act, the Alien Enemies. I got to get that right. Alien Enemies Act. There you have it. So that's how that one goes. It is a showdown, isn't it, over there? It is lawfare at its finest. Continuing. Well, now Trump has now moved to dismantle the Department of Education, permanently sparking legal and political showdowns. There's a showdown everywhere you go now. Yes, there is. And this was something that many of us wanted a long time ago, and it was really people like former Congressman Ron Paul that brought it to the forefront, and thank goodness and thank God for it. Thank God for it now. So yeah, Trump has now moved to dismantle the entire Department of Education, and it's really great to see the people melting down who are saying, oh, this is a travesty, and oh, how could he do this, and this and that. And the real travesty is when you see the results of the kids in their test scores. That's the travesty. It doesn't matter what, the intent is not really purposeful and viable, but the results truly are. And the results for the Department of Education is, it's bad because it turned us all into just corporate cubicle, mind-controlled slaves who, they don't promote starting businesses anymore, etc. Well, yes, the move to dismantle has sparked outrage and a showdown. Now, President Donald Trump has now signed an executive order officially to begin dismantling the United States Department of Education, aiming to reduce the size of the transfer authority to states and other federal agencies and fulfill a long-standing conservative goal of shrinking federal involvement in education. Yeah, a very libertarian position for quite some time. Now, critics have warned the move could disrupt billions and billions of dollars in federal funding for schools, student aid, and programs like Title I, Pell Grants, support for students with disabilities, potentially harming the vulnerable populations in underfunded districts themselves. While the order initiates staff reductions and reconstruction, fully abolishing the Education Department requires congressional approval, which faces strong Democratic opposition. Of course it does. Education advocates and Democratic leaders have vowed to challenge the order in court, just like everything else. Now, it's also worth noting that a majority of Americans, 64% to be exact, oppose eliminating the Education Department. According to recent polls now, the move has sparked a broader debate over the federal government's role in education, with supporters arguing that for state-level control and opponents warning of increased inequality in funding and access. Well, we knew that was going to be coming into the lexicon here of discussion. And finally, the executive order sets the stage for a contentious legal and political battle over the future of federal education policies, with its ultimate impact dependent on congressional action, court rulings, of course, and public response, not the outrage. So that's how that one goes. And we're happy about that one, aren't we? Moving on here. Well, Hillary Clinton, she just came back in the nick of time. One can often wonder, what laboratory of DARPA was she created in? We may never know, won't we? Well, this is quite fascinating. And the goal of a dead woman to come back, to life for this is really the goal of a dead woman. Well, Hillary Clinton is now calling for the thought police. No surprise there. The thought police who really live inside of our heads, right next to the dream police. Well, Hillary, it's not good enough for her, as she's now echoing her persistent crusade for censorship once again. At the World Forum over there in 2020, the 2025 World Forum today, over there in Berlin, Hillary Clinton called for more control over information and censorship to combat misinformation, just like the World Economic Forum and the rise of autocrats, in criticizing Trump administration for empowering those who control the information flow. That's right. She doesn't like people like Joe Rogan or any of us to really dictate truth. Well, Clinton also highlighted the influence of information on thought, speech, and action, using George Orwell's incredible 1984 to illustrate the dangers of a world without agreed upon facts and the resulting erosion of trust in democracy. For instance, Bill Clinton is a rapist. Just a good example, and that usually clears a room and kills the party once that's mentioned. Well, she also urged social media companies to enhance censorship efforts and advocated for the repeal of Section 2030, arguing without moderation, these platforms could cause real harm. Really. Her pro-censorship stance has sparked much controversy. Yeah, where's the outrage? Oh, but they like it. With critics suggesting it aims to stifle dissenting voices and maintain control over certain narratives, raising questions about who defines facts and who defines truth. Well, Clinton is not alone in her views. A former Secretary of State, John Kerry, shares concerns about governing in an era where traditional referees of facts have lost influence, highlighting the tension between control and free speech principles. Anytime these two people talk, whether it's Hillary Clinton, and and John Kerry out of all people, who are they speaking to? You know, because they're universally hated. They're like speaking to each other in one big circle full of just a bunch of jerks, if you know what I mean. So there is Hillary Clinton for you. Moving on here. We're going to get to Doge now. Doge, yes, we are. The Department of Government Efficiency. Well, this is some breaking news. Just this happened today. Doge has now found $330 million in SBA loans, Small Business Administration loans. Get this now. Not to, women or veterans, but to children under the age of 11 years old, with the youngest child being 9 months old, a 9-month-old baby who received a $100,000 loan. Ladies and gentlemen, this goes to show that no matter what age you are, just a little hard work, you can get that big loan, even fresh out of the womb. That's how great it is. You know, in America, anybody can make it. I think that's what that proves. But yes, it is quite insidious of where this is stemming from. But really, you have to ask yourself, who is cashing the checks? Who's collecting it? I might ask. And also, sticking with Doge. Now, Tesla is being targeted all over the country. We hear about the fire bombings. We hear about the desecration, the vandalization of Tesla vehicles throughout the United States. I believe even Sheryl Crow, in a grand gesture of virtue signaling, gave up her Tesla to protest and show resistance. Yes, she did. Yes, she did. So that is going to continue my streak with her of never buying one single record. Well, now Tesla is Elon Musk, and they're now putting it together that they're being targeted by the same useful idiot and domestic terrorists that burned and pillaged American cities all the way back in 2020. That's absolutely correct. Tesla dealerships and vehicles across the United States have been attacked with arson, gunfire, and vandalism, as we previously stated. To the point where White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt condemns the violence as domestic terrorism. Now, 3 suspects face up to 20 years in prison for their roles in the attacks. Elon Musk claims the backlash is tied to his efforts to cut federal waste and corruption. And also, in closing, Attorney General Pam Bondi warns of several penalties for those involved in violence, but they kind of narrowed it down to who it would be. That's the interesting thing about it all. Okay, we're going to take a quick break here as I've ran extra long. Let's see if we're going to make it here tonight. We're going to take this quick break. When we get back, we're going to just get right into Real Deal International. And we're just going to go well and way past midnight here. As that's how crucial this is, because it's a world at war. We'll be back after this message. Don't go anywhere.
Got the worst cold a human being ever had. I've got a major presentation tomorrow. I've got to rest, and I'm out of NyQuil. I could take these, but I'd still be up all night coughing, which means I'd be a wreck for the presentation, which means I could get fired. What am I going to do?
Feeling like crap has become all too common these days. Everyone keeps asking that important question. You got ivermectin?
Got ivermectin?
Got ivermectin?
You got ivermectin.
Say goodbye to those illnesses that Big Pharma just can't cure. and say farewell and bon voyage to the parasitic forces preventing you from living. Real Deal Media is now powered up with the Wellness Center to bring you the medicines that matter. Go to www.twc.health.com/Dean Ryan. Make sure to use promo code Dean Ryan. Start truly living by taking back the control of your health. Okay. Medicines that matter. Medicines that matter. Are we back? Are we back? Yes, we are. We are back at World at War here. The cyber plandemic. Anyways, you can put me on at any given time. Thank you. Okay. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to World at War here. Yes, indeed. I'm still Dean Ryan, who is cruising with you to midnight and beyond. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Things are a little disarray here. It's a case of the moan days. Moan days. Yes, as we try to be here weeknights. You could just, for a lot of new people, you could just bet your bottom dollar that World at War is predominantly Monday through Wednesday. I have to start making these announcements Monday through Wednesday, but we try to throw extra show in on a Thursday or Friday, but we split it up with our Real Deal members, our Night Owls. Yes, we do 2, maybe more shows with them a week as well. And you should become a Real Deal Media member. How to do that? Well, that's a great question. Go to realdealmedia.tv/membership. Yes, sign up tonight. Sign up tonight. We had a wonderful, usually we have wonderful Sunday brunches, depending on the weather in some cases, or depending on who Aaron books on the show last minute, like you did. Aaron, just gotta love him. Anyways, yes, go to realdealmedia.tv/membership. Be iconic, not ironic, be a visionary or debonair, be a player from the Himalaya, and join the Night Owls. Yes, indeed. Join the Night Owls. Also, you saw Ivermectin if you're feeling sick. Well, this is the time of year. Now it's spring. And, I always get allergies in spring, but some people are getting worse. Get Ivermectin. That's right. All you got to do is go to www, which stands for World Wide Web, www.twc.health.com/Dean Ryan, and also use the same promo code and get your Ivermectin today. Get rid of those sniffles. Make sure you make those work meetings in time. And if you're around, I was having lunch earlier, just to get off topic. I was having lunch earlier, speaking of sick people, and this gentleman walks in, and it's a small little confined little restaurant, and sneezes in my direction. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. No covering, nothing. And I'll tell you, I got so pissed off. I threw down whatever I was eating, and I left, and I said, "Cover your bloody face, you bloody pig." And because I don't want to get sick, but in the event I do, I know that I'm in good hands with some Real Deal Ivermectin powered by the Wellness Company. Yeah, so I should have got some Ivermectin, and I should have just forced it down his throat because of what he was forcing us to just breathe in. I'm telling you, some people are disgusting. And I won't even tell you what happened at the gym earlier. It's just, for another time, it's some people are gross. So anyways, yeah, so go to twc.health.com/Dean Ryan. Okay, we're going to sail on here. We're going to move on here and sail into the late evening, as this could be one of those late shows here. I haven't done something like this in quite some time. Let's get to it now, as we now go to some Real Deal International just the way it was meant to be. Real Deal International. Let's talk about it, shall we? Well, this spurred on over the weekend once again. That's usually when things happen these days. In this case, this one is now happening in Turkey as crises in Turkey and an uprising is now underway. Yes, it is over there. Turkey's democracy is now dying in silence, many have stated, as Elon Musk mutes the opposition to add to it. Well, Mayor Amugala's arrest, which we're going to talk about here, and X's suspension of dissenting accounts and the international community apathy mark President Erdogan's final push to crush Turkey's fragile democratic framework. That's right. Turkey's slide into an autocracy seems to have now reached a tipping point, evident from the recent events that have thrown the nation's fragile democratic framework into a major crisis. Well, the latest crisis is now a result of the arrest of what many have deemed the opposition party, the mayor of Istanbul, Erkam Amugala. That's right. And President Erdogan over there, President Erdogan's chief political rival. That's who he would be. Well, detained in a dawn raid just before he was about to be nominated as the presidential candidate for the opposition Republican People's Party, the CHP, while Mughal is now facing charges of embezzlement, corruption, terrorism, among some others. Well, critics have said this is a calculated move, by Erdogan to neutralize the only figure who could challenge him in the upcoming elections that are due before 2028, but might take a place earlier, or asylum as they might call it. Well, the arrest has led to a wave of protests across Turkey, despite government imposed bans on gatherings from Istanbul to Ankara. Demonstrators have clashed with police wielding water cannons, tear gas, and even, rubber bullets. With 343 arrests reported in just one single night, the opposition claims that the three people who flooded the Istanbul streets were defying roadblocks and riot police, three of the leaders. So this is a huge ordeal now. Now, where the Elon Musk comes into play here is, I guess he played a role in unfolding the drama by siding with the government. Is Elon Musk X was siding with Erdogan. So, but you have to almost step back, and you have to ask, is this really an organic uprising? Is this really a true independent opposition to Erdogan, or is this a CIA-created kabuki theater now gone rogue in some sense? That's what we have to ask. In fact, we just did. Okay, so there it is. That's what's happening there. Now all the way to, as we're going to jet set and take the Concorde to Ukraine. Well, now we're learning that Ukraine has violated, once again, the peace treaty. And it's always, you'll notice too, it's always what they accuse Russia of doing, either Ukraine's doing, or the cheerleaders of Ukraine are doing right here in the United States. Well, now Ukraine has now violated partial ceasefire agreement with Russia, attacks their energy infrastructure as peace talks collapse. That's right. Nobody saw this coming. Well, Ukraine breaches the U.S. brokered ceasefire within 24 hours. Unbelievable. Striking Russian oil gas facilities. Yeah. Moscow warns of a symmetrical response as Kyiv continues destructive provocations. Well, Zelensky's regime now follows the historical pattern of sabotaging peace agreements. That's right. Russia now accuses Ukraine of deliberately targeting civilian infrastructure. But they weren't, because that's where Hamas was hiding. Don't they know? Somebody should tell them. Gosh, I get so emotional when people take that wrong. Well, this is just another yet brazen example, and yes, a violation of international agreements. Ukraine has shattered a fragile ceasefire with Russia, launching attacks on critical energy infrastructure just hours after pledging peace. As we once learned, the latest escalation now includes drone strikes on the Russian gas distribution station, as well as the oil depots and also has pushed the conflict toward renewed hostilities, with Moscow now threatening a symmetrical response. No word about what Zelensky has to say about it, because he's probably not in charge. He's probably not in charge at all. So, yeah, you're going to hear a very big response now from Putin within a 24-hour period. Just a quick little history of some of the broken promises of Ukraine, in case you might have forgot. Well, I'm here for you. Ukraine's latest betrayal is it's not really an isolated incident. No way, Jose. No way, Vladimir either. Now Zelensky's regime has repeatedly sabotaged peace events and efforts for quite some time, mirroring Kyiv's longstanding refusal to honor diplomatic agreements. Well, who can forget the Minsk agreements of 2014? Ukraine pledged the autonomy for the Donbas regions, but never implemented key provisions, instead escalated military operations. This was the region of Ukraine where they had cultural Russians, people speaking Russian language, Russian food, just basically Russian people from the old USSR days that just happened to be in the borders of Ukraine. There was an ethnic cleansing on them that was being taken by the military, the lead military faction of Ukraine. That's when Putin started to step in. But when they tried to go for the advancement into NATO, that's when things got hot. And who can forget the Istanbul peace talks of 2022? The negotiations that collapsed after Western powers, including the United States and, yes, the UK, reportedly pressured Kyiv to abandon concessions. And then finally, last and certainly one of my favorites, the grain deal withdrawal of 2023. Ukraine terminated the UN-backed grain export agreement, further destabilizing global food markets. Putin highlighted this pattern during his call with Donald Trump just recently, I believe it was, emphasizing that Ukraine has repeatedly sabotaged, violated all agreements because they're a bunch of coked out whores. So there goes that peace agreement. So much for that one. You know, you can't win them all. That's what I say. You can't win them all. Sticking with that kind of part of the region, well, that brings us to Greenland, who could be our 51st state and who's in a running with Canada. We'll see who passes the audition first, but maybe not Greenland after all. Well, now Greenland Prime Minister explodes, they say, at J.D. Vance's wife ahead of a 3-day visit called American Aggression. Wow. Well, Donald Trump has expressed the desire to seize control of Greenland, despite the country being administered by NATO ally Denmark. Yes, Denmark, where it's the home of hummus and everything from the Middle East, really. It's not the same place we know anymore. As now Greenland's prime minister, yes, blasted the idea of Usha Vance, the wife of U.S. President, Vice President, I should say, J.D. Vance. I think she would be called the second lady, yeah. Visiting the country. So she's visiting Greenland, saying it's causing a big, quote, big mess, and warned, quote, American aggression was increasing. Now, the Greenlandic leader, his name is Mute Borup. His name is Mute. I don't know if the last name was ever meant to be pronounced, so we won't. Well, Mr. Mute was definitely not mute on this occasion, as he's now slammed the 3-day trip by Usha, Miss Vance to some, and her son, who's going to be there as well, which is scheduled to last from Thursday to Saturday as part of a cultural tour to see the country's annual dog sled race. God, see, if I was vice president, that's what I'd be. I would be on a international tour, on a cruise with my second lady. Sounds so much fun. Well, Ms. Vance will also be accompanied by Trump's administration's national security advisor and energy secretary, prompting fears that the U.S. is forging ahead with President Donald Trump's plan to take control of the nation, which is at present administered over there again by Denmark. So he's blasting the second lady. Is that grounds for annexation? I don't think so. Trump wants Greenland no matter what. That's how he sees it. Now, in a story of, well, great food proportion, especially if you're a breakfast person. Well, this really shows the signs of the times now. There's an egg shortage here in the United States, and certainly it could be in Canada as well, if not other places, but right here mainly. And a lot of it's due to the so-called bird flu, which is really of many farm animals across the country. So much so, now the United States has turned to Brazil to buy eggs from Brazil. That's right. Brazil is now going to be the egg provider of the United States, many have said. They're saying that this due to, yes, the egg shortage, of course. But what else is at play here? Well, they're considering a bird flu outbreak, and Brazil made the list. It certainly did. The bird flu, which is, I guess it was given by cats in some places over there in Portland. Well, now they're saying that the U.S. has almost doubled imports of Brazilian eggs, once used only for pet food. Well, we're the new pets. Well, they're now considering relaxing regulations for this on the country over there that's really has been known for their sugar canes and a lot of their agriculture. The egg shortage has fueled inflation, even as Trump's tariffs, or I should say before they even can take effect. Now, the Trump administration is also promoting this as they want to try to lower the cost of eggs. Well, just recently in February, the administration announced a $1 billion plan to lower egg prices, which includes helping farmers prevent the spread of the, some might say, fictitious virus, and researching the miracle jab options. And they also said, too, it totally blew my mind, that cows can get bird flu. And the first bird flu got contracted by a human was not that long ago. So this is it. I mean, so to close it out here, as 170 million chickens have been culled. They killed them all, including turkeys and other birds. Even the cockatoos, hopefully not. But grocery shoppers now have really taken the hit, as now eggs have surged and skyrocketed 53% in February alone. So there you have it. When you got to go to Brazil for your egg hunting, what does this world come to? And I'm not a big egg guy, but something about the scarcity of them. You just got to have one now. Moving on here as our egg democracy dies in silence. We had a China story, but I don't think we're going to make it that here tonight. I want to share with you this. I want to talk about some of the steps to prepare for a cyber attack in the event, the World Economic Forum makes this happen. It's quite daunting to do so and to talk about this. So we're going to do one more segment here, which is brought to you by Real Deal Media's Real Deal Go over there on Give, Send, Go. Keep these broadcasts going, as we could be 3 weeks away from a total shutdown of our own. You have the power to make it rain, make it happen. Okay, let's get to it now with some Real Deal Health, but in a preparation kind of way. Yeah, shall we? Well, this is, our main story tonight was the cyber security threat, the cyber plandemic, as a World Economic Forum is promoting it, and has been, as we found out, for 5 years now, since 2020, since it all went down. Well, let me tell you a bit more about it. This is coming from Natural News, is some surviving steps, I should say steps to survive a power grid attack. We know it's coming. We've seen all the hints and signs before, but yeah, this is what happens now, is how to stay safe in a grid down scenario. Well, here's some just suggestions over there from Natural News, and I'm going to share them with you, as the possible causes of a grid down scenario include the electromagnetic pulse EMPs. That's right, cyber attack terrorists, as we know. You have to prepare for a grid down scenario, secure water supplies, stockpile food, and learn how to preserve food. Beef jerky, pickles, you name it. Find alternative energy sources and build a prepping community and network that you feel comfortable in. Developing off-grid skills like starting a home garden, learning first aid, and taking self-defense lessons can help you survive in a post-apocalyptic world, but more importantly, they'll help you survive any couple of days, if not a week, of darkness if it were to come. Secure your home and designate secure areas within your home. Avoid discussing your preparations with neighbors or strangers from the street or anyone you're sitting next to on a bus or train. Don't tell them anything. I mean, that's common sense, but stay low key. Expect water and food shortages, communication breakdowns, increased crime rates in prolonged grid down scenarios. Preparation is about building resilience and confidence by securing water and food and energy, and yes, developing survival skills that are going to keep you living here a little longer if you want to. You can also protect yourself and your loved ones from worst case scenarios. Start preparing today to face any challenges. Yeah. So it's good to know some judo, if you know what I mean. And women should be taking self-defense classes as, when everything goes down. I mean, look what's happening to Haiti. Haiti sexual assaults against women and children have gone up 1,000% in Haiti. Haiti's so bad, I don't even know where to begin. Just the gruesome, grotesque nature of what's happening there. So they're experiencing what we're, pontificating on here. So there it is. So those are just a few common things to know. You can see more of this on Natural News, but sometimes you just need to hear it again and get familiar with it because, the times they are changing. Okay, well, it's that time again. Speaking of changing times, we have gone way past our usuals, which is going to bring us to final thoughts. Final thoughts here. Final thoughts. Yes, it's final thoughts of the cyber Plandemic episode. Very bombastic one that brought us back to basics and brought us back to that spirit and tried to bring back that fear of 2020. Certainly failed on all accords, just like Disease X. And I think that's a continuation that we're going to see here is the deep state syndicate, as we know it, is really grasping for straws and has been for quite some time, but now they're accelerating that, but also doubling down. I mean, just the fact that Ukraine signed a peace treaty. Think about this. Ukraine signs a peace treaty, a ceasefire, and within 24 hours breaks that ceasefire agreement. But they'll probably say that Russia fired a rocket and they had no choice. And where do we see this happening across the globe? We see this happening a lot of places. And when you point this out, when you point out what's happening in war in real time, people are so tribal these days. People are so partisan and biased, but also blind to see the true nature of reality. In their case is pure subjective fantasy for some, but for us, it is the last heroic effort to truly be a sovereign country again, nation and world, and better yet, to be a sovereign individual. And that's what truly scares the power structure. And that's why there has to be all these plandemics, the judge-demics, power grid failures, the invention of Lyme disease as a bioweapon to keep humanity down, because a lot of people just want to get along. A lot of people we're more alike than not. We all have a similar, taste in things, similar favorites, but you wouldn't know so by watching their PR firms on television, on the lamestream or the lamestream urine-soaked media news. You would think we're a extremely divided population living in the 1800s, KKK South or something of that effect. And it just falls on deaf ears. Just like if you're critical of the Black Lives Matter and that syndicate, well, then you're anti-Black. Just like if you're critical of Planned Parenthood and the fact that they do organ selling and organ harvesting, well, then you're called anti-woman. And just like when you're critical of Israel, you're now called an anti-Semite. Well, these things don't land like they used to anymore, because we have a clear thinking and we have a clear definition of where we want to go in the future. And a lot of these people are grasping for all they know. Because when prosperity has freedom attached to it, it spells the end of the old world order. And I think that's where we are here today. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. I will be back tomorrow night, provided the spider webs from the chemtrails don't prevent that from happening. We'll be back tomorrow night with the great Jim Fetzer. Don't want to miss that. Also, if you are a member, we're going to be doing some things starting Thursday, Friday onward. So it's going to be a very action-packed week ahead. Okay, so I want to thank, we would have had a guest today. He's going to come back. But for Aaron Cates, he'll be back Wednesday. You don't want to miss his huge Panama report. You don't want to miss that. So for him, Jim Fetzer, and all of us here at Real Deal Media, I'm Dean Ryan saying thank you for sharing a bit of your night. And always remember to stay tuned and always stay awake. Good night, everybody. If I live in my room, would you still remember me? I'm a stream traveling now. Too many places I've got to see. But if I stay here with you, girl, then you just couldn't be the same. 'Cause I'm as free as a bird, and as a bird that cannot change. Lord knows I can change, and as a bird you cannot change. Lord knows I can change. And as a bird you cannot change. And as a bird you cannot change. And as a bird you cannot change.